Testing, is that working? No, I didn't turn that one on yet.
You want it on?
I'll turn it on in a second. Is this one working? Okay, great. Testing.
Yes, it's working.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, everybody. We're going to get started in just a second. Sorry for the late meeting start. Hi, good evening. My name is Amanda Brenner Cannon. I'm Program Director with the Fire Safe Council. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm going to start out with just a few housekeeping items. First of all, our emergency exits are over there and over there. We are broadcasting through Zoom and it is being recorded. So you'll have a recording of this meeting available to you through your supervisor or on our Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council website. And you'll have an opportunity to see what that website address is with it and throughout the presentation. Your Zoom audio has been turned off. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties today. Your Zoom audio has been turned off. Questions from participants in Zoom have been taken early. Feel free, however, to ask questions as they come up. There will be a link throughout the presentation that allows you to do that. Please silence your cell phones. We also have surveys that can be provided at the entrance. And at the end of the presentation, we will also have a link where you can get an online version of that survey if you don't want to do a paper one or if you're viewing via Zoom. Okay. All right, now I've been told where to stand exactly. Thanks, everyone. Just a few more things. Hold your questions until after the presentation. We'll have a Q&A session. And we also invite you after the Q&A session to stay a little while, grab some resources at the resource table at the front, and to talk with any of us here, CAL FIRE, Fire Safe Council, and so on. So with that, I am going to pass the mic over to Daryl Ray, Deputy Director of the Office of Emergency Management, to talk a little bit about some of the work that they're doing that connects to the CWPP project.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Daryl Ray. I'm the Deputy Director of the Office of Emergency Management at the county. We work closely with the city of Morgan Hill and all the other local jurisdictions throughout the Santa Clara County operational areas, what we call it. All those jurisdictions collected into one group. And so it is really a pleasure to be here. I will tell you that I'm usually stuck in an office and thinking about a lot of these topics theoretically and scenario wise and a kind of really high level and strategic. And it is truly a pleasure to get on the ground level and see the people who are who we're planning for. I'm able to run into random folks who are able to tell me things that I can't learn reading the reference material that's just available in my office. So getting up and speaking with the members of the community, I'm able to learn intimate details that will help me do my job more effectively if there is a disaster in your local area. So I want to express my appreciation for your participation tonight so that I get that information as a professional. It makes me better at my job. So thank you tonight. A couple of the things that we wanted to bring up from our perspective. First is the local multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. This mitigation plan is connected to the community wildland fire protection plan. Think of it like this: the multi-jurisdictional, multi-hazard mitigation plan addresses all of the hazards that we've identified throughout the county, and there are 8 of them. Wildfire happens to be one of them, and it happens to be very high on that hazard list. You as community members are able to engage through this process to identify intimate issues, things that you know about that I don't know about, get those things into a government document, into a plan where we can use that reference material in other programs like our local hazard mitigation planning program to apply for federal funds. So this is what I really like about the CWPP in relationship to government and hazard mitigation. You as the community members are telling us what you have identified as hazards in your areas. And then we are able to plan for those strategically and then apply for federal funds to address those problems. And that's why I like this particular topic. Additionally to that, we are updating the safety element that is part of the county's general plan. That is a legislative requirement. The big takeaway from the safety element update is the evacuation planning that is taking place with the Department of Planning at the county and with all of the local jurisdictions. So that's this is essentially what this is illustrating is that there isn't just the Office of Emergency Management that's worried about wildfire and mitigating wildfire, responding to wildfire. It's not just the fire department that's worrying about it. It's the plan. It's a whole of government approach. In California, given the last several years and last few events, we've recognized that the threat has grown in proportion to our ability to respond and recover from it. And programs in requirements like updating our safety element are the government's response to saying, we need to address evacuation routes. It's not an option. That's government, that's in my opinion, responsive government. This update is supposed to take about 12 months to complete. It involves all of the local jurisdictions in the area. What's cool about that is if Gilroy has a project that's on the border with Morgan Hill, if the two jurisdictions get together and they apply together, they double their value in the stakes. They're more competitive by being multiple jurisdictions. It was just a single jurisdiction versus 2 or 3 jurisdictions getting together. The 3 getting together are going to have more value in that competitive process than just the one. So that's why it's important that it's a multi-jurisdictional update. Also in that during that planning process, and this is I want to stress this again because the more pixels that we have, the better picture of the situation we can obtain. And community members are pixels. And so by providing your input, you are increasing our resolution of the hazard in our community. And so when we do our mitigation plan update, there will be another opportunity not to just address wildfire, but the other hazards that have been assessed for Santa Clara County as well. So I hope that you participate in that process too. Great. That's it for me. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your attention. Yes, sir. There's a question. Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, understood. So first, let me just say I appreciate the concern. I would like to take the issue offline, and we can reach out to departments with the county and see if we can expedite any issues or increase awareness. You bet. I'll make sure we get contact information, and we'll be in touch and continue the conversation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, understood. So I think this is a great conversation to continue because there are multiple stakeholders that I wouldn't be able to dictate what they do or how they do it. And I think they need to hear your concerns too. So we'll make sure that you get my information. If you send me an email, we'll continue that conversation with the appropriate departments. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. We all appreciate you being here. Once again, we are asking to hold questions till after the presentation. We will hold a question and answer session. And also, since we are broadcasting this online, viewers on the other end in Zoom would love to hear your questions as well. So we do ask for people to come up to the podium, or if you feel more comfortable, we can bring the microphone to you, but we'll get to that when we get to Q&A. So once again, thank you for Daryl and the Office of Emergency Management for coming to all these meetings and connecting these two documents, and just for your time and your service. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to CAL FIRE. Oh, actually, no, we're changing things around. Seth Chalet, CEO, Fire Safe Council.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm only going to say a very short introduction, and then I'll be back to give a little bit more detailed presentation. But as Amanda said, we're here because we want to hear your questions. And we recognize, obviously people have issues, challenges. We're here. We hope you bring them to the forefront, but let's save those to the end so that we can move through the meeting. But I just want to take a quick moment and again, thank Deputy Director Ray for your presence tonight. I also want to give a shout out to a power student, Najaf, who's part of the management team and couldn't be here tonight. We hope you're better soon. And I want to thank principally the funder that's enabled this CWPP update to happen. And that's our partners at CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE and the SCU unit provided a $250,000 grant to the Fire Safe Council to help lead and coordinate the update of the CWPP. And obviously we couldn't do what we've been able to do. This is the 5th of a series of 5 public meetings, and we couldn't do that and bring the document up to date without the support and funding from CAL FIRE. So thank you. I also want to thank our partners at County Fire and all of the fire districts because we get a lot of support. So I'll return in a moment, but without further ado, I'd like to introduce Division Chief Ed Ore, who will talk a little bit about the 2016 plan and bring it current, and then we'll go into more detail. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Seth. I'd like to start out by making sure we all have a clear understanding what a CWPP is and what it isn't and why we're here tonight. So CWPP's Community Wildfire Protection Plan was a product of the federal government back in 2003. It was part of the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. And you'll find CWPP documents for communities, entire counties, big and small areas throughout the country. And probably any 2 or any 20 you look at will all be different, but they all have 3 things in common. And those things are that it's a product of a collaborative process where stakeholders, the community, public, everybody who has an interest in the wildfire problem come together to look for solutions. Another part is identifying specific projects that can be done to mitigate the fire hazards. And it's temporary, but it can be things around homes. It can be roads, evacuation routes, as was mentioned, or entire landscapes, but specific projects, fuel reduction projects. And then also things that can be done to reduce the structural ignitability. That's just Smokey Bear messaging. That's all the things you hear to be careful with your fireplace and your smoke detectors and just a wide variety of things. So beyond that, it's up to the jurisdiction that's preparing it to put in what they want. So some documents are thin, some are really thick. It's important to note some aspects of the CWPP, like it is not a mandate. It is a series of recommendations. It's a list of good ideas and things that we know we've learned from school hard knocks or from research that we can do to mitigate the fire problem. It doesn't have any teeth to it. It's not enforceable. There's no guarantees it'll happen. It doesn't come with funding. It doesn't come with CEQA clearance. It doesn't come with any permits that are required. So it's all willing stakeholders deciding later on that they're going to get together and actually make these things happen. And then those projects that are developed for the plan are prioritized. Where do we start? And as Director Ray had mentioned, for the local hazard mitigation plan, how important that is to like getting FEMA grants. Similarly, having a CWPP in place opens doors for grant funding for fire prevention activities. There's a common question on the application form: is your proposal consistent with a CWPP? And if you check the box yes, you're going to score much higher. So we want to try and take advantage of that so that we're as successful as possible. Another thing is a CWPP is not in and of itself a CEQA document. It doesn't meet the legal definition of that. So none of what we're doing here tonight is like a CEQA public process, if you're familiar with that. Next slide, please. So let me give a little bit of history here so that you understand what happened up until this point relative to CWPPs. So back in 2008, the Fire Safe Council led the effort to develop CWPPs for parts of the county. They facilitated one in the Croy area and Lexington Hills in 2008, and then the East Foothills in 2009, and then Los Altos Hills had a fire mitigation plan, which wasn't exactly a CWPP, but close enough. So those only addressed certain limited geographic areas of the county. Well, in 2014, Santa Clara County Fire recognized the need to have one for the entire county. So they got the process started. They applied for a grant, got one from CAL FIRE to fund that effort. And for 2 years, we worked on a countywide CWPP. It was completed in August of 2016. And then we had the Loma fire. I don't know if any of you remember that, but you can see a picture up there of the mushroom cloud from that. Well, that had the effect of impacting many of the priority projects that we had identified. I mean, the ink was just dry in August, and then that fire hit in September. So we took a tactical pause and decided that we were going to make a few amendments, changes to the 2016 plan to address those impacts, change the priorities, etc. And we wrestled with it a little bit, and then unfortunately life got in the way. We never really made all of those changes that we had intended to. So because of that, we never got the document to the Board of Supervisors for their signature, or the fire chiefs in the county for their signature. So technically the 2016 plan that we're here now to update was never fully adopted. However, all the key stakeholders who were participants back at that time were continued to move along as if it were. So what we're here tonight to do is talk about, well, what do we want to do differently than 2016? What's changed? How can we update it and make it more useful? So while we're doing that, I want to set the stage a little bit, give you some things to think about. So 2016 was just 6 years ago, not very long. However, since then, the world is a very different place. And I think if I point out a few things, the point will hit home with you. So in CAL FIRE keeps a top 20 list for the number of acres burned, for the most expensive fires, and for the number of deaths from wildland fires. So if you look at the top 20 list right now, since the ink was dry in 2016, 6 years ago, 12 of the top 20 fires for acres have occurred. 12 of the top 20 in terms of most expensive fires have occurred. And 7 of the top 20 for deadliest fires have occurred. So pretty significant. And then that includes a 1,000,000-acre fire that we had. That includes 2 fires that burned from the west side of the Sierras up and over the top to the east side of the Sierras, which had never happened before. The cost of suppressing those fires and then the recovery after that is just astronomical. It's not sustainable. And that led the legislature, the governor, our director, everyone down to the public to say, hey, we got to do something different. So that's part of the reason for wanting to update this plan. We also had smoke impacts, so that even if you weren't in the fire or adjacent to the fire, you were subject to the impacts of the smoke because it was pretty wide ranging. We had smoke go from here in California all the way to the East Coast. And certainly we were blanketed for quite some time. We had area closures. So there's a lot of places you couldn't go to go on your vacation or go visit grandma or business or any number of things because of the closures. Insurance rates for your fire insurance. You've all seen those rates go up, or you were out and out canceled. All of that's happened since 2016. PSPS power outages to prevent additional wildfire starts. That became a thing after 2016. And then just the large scale evacuations in general, where tens of thousands of people per fire were evacuated and impacting other areas. So on the screen there, you can see the acres that have happened. So in 2021, it shows 2.5 million fires. That's federal land, state responsibility, local, that's everything. But in terms of the state responsibility, last year, it was 984,000 acres at this time last year. Now, as of today, for 2022, we're just under 34,000 acres. So fortunately, we've had a good year. But, next slide, please. So in the 2016 plan, let me talk a little bit about that. So that was a county-wide document that was prepared. And the normal practice, what most counties do is they do their county-wide plan and that's it. And then the local jurisdictions, whether it be a city, a town, a fire safe council, a community, fire safe council, whoever, it's up to them to then do their own little mini CWPP that tiers off of the county-wide one. We decided back in 2014 that we wanted to do the whole enchilada at the same time. And that's the same model that we're doing this time around as well. So last time we had 18 annexes. I don't know how many we'll end up with this time, but each annex represents a part of the county that gives more granular resolution to the issues and priority projects. Some of the lessons learned from 2016 that we want to address in this update are the contractor that we used in 2016 is SWCA. They did a fabulous job. And we brought them back because of their familiarity with the area, the culture, the players, stakeholders. So they're back to do this current one. And they will be doing things a little bit differently, which Seth will explain, and a video will explain shortly. Let's see. Another lesson learned was we should not have delayed the approval process. We should have moved forward with getting that document to the Board of Supervisors and fire chiefs for their signature. It turns out that the issues that we were concerned about that prompted us to delay the signature were really only temporary, because all the brush that got burned up in the Loma fire came back. It's back now. It's the hazards come back again. And then human nature, being what it is still the same. And the things that we do that are perhaps risky for wildfire starts, those remain. So in hindsight, we should have got it signed. In 2016, there wasn't a process for tracking the work that was done. So all the priority projects were left to the individual stakeholders to pursue, as was the original plan, but there wasn't anybody to display to the public what was done. There wasn't anybody to help coordinate amongst the stakeholders to facilitate getting projects done, kind of a spark plug. It's especially important when you have multi-jurisdictional projects to be somebody to break the ice and get things going. And Seth is going to talk about that a little bit when he comes back up here. Another thing is we missed some key stakeholders from 2016. That was our first attempt at a county-wide effort, and in hindsight, we recognize, hey, we forgot about so we want to reach out more to include some of the parties who weren't involved. And then the last thing was we did not have a robust GIS map of the project areas. So GIS is just a digital electronic way of mapping and storing data and keeping track of things. So some of the things that were a high priority in the 2016 plan were just described in more of a narrative form. It wasn't like you could look at a map and go, aha, that's where it is, and really relate to it. So this time around, it's going to be much clearer. And there will be a thing called a story map that you'll see more about. So for 2022, one of the things that we want to also do is we want to update the hazard map and the risk maps. So next slide, please. Here's a map of what we used in 2016. You see the amount of red is pretty significant in the Santa Cruz Mountains. That is all based on what's called land fire data. It's most widely used all around the country. It's developed by the federal government, but it's 30-meter resolution. And the models that go with it are pretty good, but we have an opportunity to do better. So next slide. So a couple of years ago, well, actually in 2017, after the North Bay fires, and as you recall, they were hammered as well. And their constituents up there started asking questions of themselves about what they can do to prevent a repeat. Because like the Tubbs fire was a repeat of the Hanley fire. So they realized that they needed data on where the hazards are, where the risks are, to make informed decisions. So they commissioned this project called the Fine Scale Mapping. And it brought together all the state-of-the-art data sources, including LIDAR, which is if you're not familiar with it, it's a digital terrain visualization, very powerful for a lot of things. Anyway, combines all of this data together, very granular, very fine scale resolution, And the work was done by Tuckman Geospatial, Digital Mapping Solutions, and Wildland Res Management. They developed this process, which they did in all of Sonoma County. And then Marin County saw it and said, we want that. So they got it done. Then San Mateo County got theirs done. And currently, Santa Cruz County and Santa Clara County are well beyond the 50-yard line on getting it done. And then Alameda County and Contra Costa County are next. Most of those counties were done with CAL FIRE grants as well, because even though this data assortment is very powerful for land managers, we looked at that as an outstanding product for determining the risk and hazard of various areas. So sorry, I lost my train of thought. So anyway, we're pursuing that now. Oh, what I was going to say was all of that data is publicly available. So if you go to a website called pacificvegmap.org, you can download all of it. So it's all in the public domain. And then on the slide here, the work currently being done in Santa Cruz and Santa Clara County is being facilitated by the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network. That's where they're listed here. Next slide, please. So here is what actually the hazard map is for 2022. You can see the amount of red is less, but it's because it's really more granular, and you can see where the true risks really are empirically, so we can really better focus our money and our attention where it's most important. Next slide. So this is another hazard assessment that I want to talk about. You'll see in different documents in different parts of the country where there's risk maps, there's hazard maps. Risk and hazard are different, by the way, but they're all dependent on who prepares them, what the model is, what they're most concerned about. So the state has had these fire hazard severity zone maps since the mid 2000s, and it's pretty fundamental to any discussion about fire hazard, project planning, that sort of thing. But those maps really needed to be updated. And the Office of the State Fire Marshal and CAL FIRE FRAP, Forest Range Assessment Program, have just completed a update for the state responsibility areas. And by the way, in Santa Clara County, there's 570 some thousand acres of SRA land in this county that CAL FIRE is primarily responsible for. So the maps just got released yesterday. There's a public comment period that is open until February 3rd. And each county is required to have one public meeting, one meeting per county. Santa Clara County we will hold a Santa Clara County meeting here in this room on January 10th. So if you're interested in coming to see that, it will be strictly to solicit input. But I'm just bringing this up because it's somewhat related to the CWPP, and you'll be hearing about risk maps and hazard maps from different sources. And I just want you to understand the differences between the FRAP maps and what's being used in the CWPP. And I think that's it for me. Thank you, Seth.
You're welcome, Chief Warry, and thank you for the insightful presentation. You know, I just want to reflect on a moment for me, because I've been with the Fire Safe Council a little over 2 years now. And shortly after I started my tenure with the Fire Safe Council, the first road trip I made was with Chief Ed Ore through Henry Coe Park and the SCU Lightning Complex fire. And honestly, not a week goes by where I don't spend a couple of minutes thinking about that. You know, obviously I couldn't see all of the footprint, but what I saw has stayed with me. And, you know, our goal collectively, certainly all of the folks in this room that were impacted by that fire, but all of our partners, are to make sure that we can go to battle with a plan. And at the end of the day, we all know from the art of war, right? You want to make sure that you go to battle with a plan, but then reality will determine actually how you pivot. And that's kind of how I look at the CWPP. It really is a roadmap that we want to work on collaboratively and seek public input. And I can't stress this enough. I think the most important aspect of the CWPP is the public engagement piece, because all of the agencies, the Fire Safe Council, all of the county partners, you know, can't do this ourselves. One of the things that I've really learned in my time with the Fire Safe Council is, you know, probably more than most, let's call it most organizations or most problems that you want to tackle, you try to tackle, whether it's in the business world or other worlds. Wildfire is really about collaboration. You know, there's no single silver bullet that can solve the challenge of wildfire. And the Fire Safe Council couldn't do what we do without the support of all of our agency partners. But at the same time, collaboration also means the residents, the homeowners doing their part. We all have some skin in the game. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but we all have to manage our defensible space. We all have to take personal responsibility for knowing your zone, knowing the exact evacuation routes. Obviously, those on Zoom and those sitting in the audience today know that. But you know, if there's one key takeaway, I think the CWPP really leaves me with, it's a collaborative effort. And we're going to collaborate for the next 12 months with all of our agency partners and all of our residents and community partners, because ultimately we want to deliver a better product than what was done in 2016. And that's not to say that that was an ineffective product, but as Chief Ore said, shortly after that was completed, wildfires hit and we had to make a pivot. And so ultimately, we feel that we've got a great team, and I'll go through that in a minute, that can take those lessons learned, recognize the challenges we had in 2016, and hopefully present a better product to the public. And so that's a little bit about what I'm going to talk about now. And from our perspective here, at the Fire Safe Council, we really see the CWPP effort as kind of a three-pronged, three-tiered effort. As I mentioned earlier, we got our CAL FIRE grant, I think, back in August. So for the last few months, we've kind of been behind the curtain. We've been doing a lot of planning. We've been reaching out to various groups that I'll go through here in a second, because we have to put a team together that covers the full spectrum of what we have here in Santa Clara County. So let me talk to you briefly about the three prongs and what each does. And of course, afterwards, I'm more than glad to answer questions about this. We have the CWP management team. The management team is the ultimate group that, you know, for lack of a better term, the buck will stop with the management team in terms of making decisions on what goes in and what doesn't go into the plan, how to make sure that we put the plan out in the best way possible. That team consists of today, I think, 17 or 18 people. Obviously, SWCA is a significant partner. We've got the Office of OEM and Planning. We've got the Office of Emergency Management, of course, CAL FIRE, all of our partners in the various county fire entities and regional fire entities. All of those make up what we call the CWP management team. Prong two is really, I think, the core heart of what makes up the CWPP. And we call that the advisory team. And right now, as of yesterday at least, we've got 29 or 30 people on that advisory team. They're all subject matter experts. Some of them may come from academia. Some of them may be fire ecologists. Some of them may be wildfire researchers at San Jose State or affiliated with Stanford or other educational institutions. Some of them are from various fire service entities. Many are from the largest landowners in the county. We've got representatives from PGE, Valley Water, San Jose Water, So we've got people with a vested stake, but more importantly, broad knowledge. And so we're going to utilize the advisory team, kind of be the tip of the spear, if you will, to collect data, help us interface with the public, make recommendations that then we can obviously collectively hash out, dialogue with, and ultimately decide how to take those recommendations, prioritize them, and then put them in a final planning document. The next group, the third prong of the organization, is the people in this room, the people on Zoom. It's the key agencies, it's the Native American entities, the Native American tribes that inhabit this area. We want to ensure that we get their input. It's made up of influencers. You know, as you would imagine, the Fire Safe Council interacts on a regular basis with a lot of people that have lived in the county for a long time that have various issues related to wildfire. We want to encourage that dialogue. We want to open it up to the stakeholders, and most importantly, the public, through these 5 meetings. And then eventually, once the CWPP is complete, we'll have a final meeting that will do a county-wide meeting. It'll be at least on Zoom, if not in person at a specific place, but it'll be at least on Zoom. And we hope to have enough time so that we can do it interactively, where we can take Zoom questions, so that once the document is released, we can engage the public. Now, if we can go to the next slide, please. I want to take a moment. How many of you in the room here today have heard of or have engaged with the Santa Clara Fire Safe Council in the past? Raise your hand. So that's half the audience. CAL FIRE doesn't count, but thanks for raising your hand anyway. That's about half the audience. So I just want to take a moment and give a little bit background about how the Fire Safe Council came to be, and more importantly, some of the projects that we've been doing for the last many years in the county. So as some of you may know, we got started maybe 20 years ago. Very typical of a grassroots organization. We had people that were, to some degree, they had self-interest. They lived in the WUI. They were concerned about wildfire risk. We had a number of retired fire service personnel. And so, long story short, a grassroots organization was born, and they really began to kind of figure out how to collaborate with all the county agencies and what role they could do with wildfire engagement. And like most fire safe councils, you know, kind of the first thing you want to tackle, kind of the low-hanging fruit, was getting involved in community chipping, right? Community chipping is a spoke in the bigger wheel of fire mitigation, but that's an area that the Fire Safe Council has excelled in. But over the years, we've had the, I think, benefit, luxury, and success of being able to recruit a team of people well before I joined that bring a lot of passion and a lot of knowledge to this industry. And so as we moved up the ladder, so to speak, from an organic community organization, we began to bring more credibility, more hardened experience, people that have fought wildfires at various county agencies. And we began to receive, let's call it, more sophisticated grants, not just from CAL FIRE, but support from County Fire, both in-kind support, on the ground resources to help us for our projects. And so we were able to move from initially doing chipping to offering community outreach and education programs. And perhaps a little later, if anyone is interested, myself, Tara, and Amanda will be more than glad to talk about what we have on our roadmap for 2023, because community outreach, community education about hardening escape routes, how to evacuate, know your zone, all of those things are things that we want to engage in a bigger way. And of course, you know, COVID affected everybody in the county. So the last couple of years, we weren't as visible with the county fairs and all of the in-person engagements. Well, we hope that we can continue the progress we've had, and we want to be more present. And frankly, we've talked a lot about this. Chief Ore, myself, I want to give a shout out to Chief Dwight Good. He's been a tremendous friend and supporter of the Fire Safe Council. You know, we only have a limited resource and we only have so much bandwidth, but one of our core interests is engaging more here in the South County. You know better than I, there's a tremendous need here. So if we can work with entities like the Cattlemen's Association or other organizations and help drive fire-wise communities, those are one of the things we think we can really do to take the engagement and deepen our ability to find on the ground projects that we can support the South County area with. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Tara, if you don't mind, next slide, please. So without tooting our horn, when I talk to people, I would say the most widely recognized project that I hear that people know of the Fire Safe Council from is the Highway 17 project. That was a contract that was awarded back in 2018, I believe. And it was up until one of the projects we'll go into, it was the largest project that this organization had taken on. But it was, frankly, how we learned our chops. We were able to work with all of the agency partners, Caltrans, County Fire, County Roads and Airports, all of the entities, and really kind of act as the liaison organization, bringing all of the organizations together, kind of smoothing over the rough edges. You know, as a nonprofit, and we are a 501c3, you know, we find that people tend to be more willing to work with us. I think there's maybe less apprehension knowing that they're working with a nonprofit. And our concern is not really writing tickets. We don't issue tickets for things we see. We just work with our partners. If we notice a defensible space challenge, we engage them to work to address those issues. But our trust is really the bond we have with the public. And so we're not here to issue tickets. We're here to work with our partners proactively. A couple of other projects that we've done are the Charcoal Road fuel break, 4.5 mile fuel break, the Page Mill Road fuel break. We've partnered with our friends and client at Los Altos Hills County Fire District and supported that work. And then recently, we also were fortunate enough to have been asked to submit a proposal that we won, and it was a $4.6 million CAL FIRE fire resiliency grant. And that has work that we're actually doing in the South County. It's a combination of 4 fuel breaks and 4 escape route projects. Mount Madonna Summit Road, Loma Chiquita escape route. I think as Chief Ori had mentioned earlier, you know, we were working in the Loma Chiquita area back in 2016 when some of the fires hit. The Fire Safe Council had to pivot some of our work. We're fortunate now that with this funding, we can make some significant investments in Loma Chiquita escape route. And we're doing a series of escape routes and fuel breaks. And so once that schedule is fully published, we want to make sure that everybody here in the community is aware of that. Lastly, what I want to talk about is a project that we're really proud of. And it is what we call a Forest Health Grant, CAL FIRE Award, but it happened to be the largest forest health grant awarded by CAL FIRE in 2022. It's a $7.5 million grant. But what was unique about that, and this is where we hope that the Fire Safe Council can continue to move forward, it's a collaborative effort. The landowners are San Jose Water, Santa Clara County Parks, and Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. So we took about 6 or 7 months and collaborated on a grant. We had to recalibrate it because what's unique about this grant is it's not just fuel mitigation treatments. It's also forest health related activities. It protects the important reservoir areas in our area here in the Los Gatos Creek. And so it was a partnership where we had to constantly dial in what the planned offering was. And we were fortunate enough to win that grant. And just 2 weeks ago, we've started the on the ground work. It's about 1,100 acres in the Los Gatos Creek watershed. We ultimately, once the rainy season ends, we want to have an opportunity to engage the community and invite the public to come out and see the work we're doing. And hopefully in the March, perhaps April timeframe, weather permitting, we'll work on how we can get the community aware of that. So that's a little bit about how we got to where we are today. One last thing I want to mention, because we've got a board that's actively engaged, you know, we're looking strategically, how could we become even more valuable to our partners? And so one of the things that we're branching out to, and we've done this now over the last 4 or 5 months, is building a consulting and technology practice where we can help our partners, be it the fire service agencies, be it the corporate organizations, large landowners, how to select and pilot test various wildfire related technologies. They could be wildfire cameras, They could be network smoke detectors that will detect PM 2.5 particulates and other matters. So we really want to focus on becoming more deeply integrated and perhaps be able to offer those services in addition to our traditional hazardous fuel reduction grants. The slide you see here in front of me is really kind of the tick-tock of how we see the schedule of the CWPP rolling out. If you recall, I mentioned at the start of my spiel that we were in the quiet phase for the first couple of months and really kind of working on tasks 1 through 6, making sure that we've got all the data that we need to make an evidence-based and informed case, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to defend our decisions. We recognize that whatever we put in the CWPP, I can guarantee you, not everybody's going to agree with our priorities. We understand that, but that's the challenge you face in any public-facing project, but we want to make sure that we've got an evidence case to back up the decisions that we make. And so now, as you can see, we're really into the task 7 phase, which is the completion of 5 public meetings that the CAL FIRE funding has provided for. Over the next couple of months, we're going to be deeply engaged in working with all of our 3 prongs that I mentioned before, putting together information, and then we hope, as you can see here on the screen, if all goes well, approximately June 2023, we'll be able to implement the final, or at least we'll be able to publicly unveil the final CWPP document. Now, before I get into the story map, which is what our partner SWCA is doing, and this really, the story map will be one of the main differentiators between the 2016 effort and the effort we're doing today in 2022 and 2023. Chief Ore has been bringing, and I don't know, I shouldn't put you on the spot, but in the prior meetings, you brought the phone book size CWPP document, probably weighs 30 or 40 pounds. It's a big document. And at the end of the day, we all know that those documents are hard to interact with. Nobody wants to kind of, dog ear those things and figure out how it affects their particular geographic area. So the story map is how we're going to be able to engage the public, provide an interactive capability. And one last thing I want to stress here to those on Zoom and those in the audience tonight is we've been very grateful. We had the support of County Fire, the South County Fire District, and equally as important, the Board of Supervisors. There is an opportunity to apply for a state-funded county coordinator grant. Santa Clara County does not have a formal county coordinator entity. And as an independent nonprofit, we couldn't provide or we couldn't apply for the grant funding without the support of the Board of Supervisors. So we worked with them and all of our partners to put together an application. We hope to know, frankly, by the end of the year, if we're going to win that grant. Assuming that we win that grant, and of course, anybody here that's applied for grants, there's 3 guarantees in life. We all know what they are, but winning a grant isn't one of them. But we feel pretty good that if we get that grant, it will be the opportunity to take the CWPP and actionalize it. We're going to work with all those annexes that are in the plan, work with them to make sure that there are paths to progress to completing all of their commitments, making sure that we can update the community members, making sure that we can report to the Board of Supervisors about the progress or lack of progress, and make sure that we can take the CWPP and actually ensure that it's implemented, right? Because no matter how good the plan is, right, it's the old adage, is it strategy or execution? It's really both, but a good plan that doesn't get addressed and doesn't get followed up collects dust. So with that, I want to let everybody know that what we're going to do, tech gremlins permitting, is we've got a short video, about 10 or 12 minutes. This is an example of what the CWPP story map will look like. It's not the actual story map for Santa Clara County, but it's a representative example where Victoria Amato, who is our lead CWPP progress manager and project manager for SCW, she'll walk you through what we hope to accomplish. And in the next 30 to 60 days, we anticipate going live with our version, or at least the initial version of the story map. So without further ado, let me have you watch and listen to the story map. We're live without a net. One moment, please, while we work through the challenges. And ultimately, if we can't resolve the technical challenges, we will send out a link. The full story map will be available on the FireSafe website. It's already there, as Tara said. But let's see if we can do one or two workarounds to get it to come up tonight. It's worked in most cases, but sometimes there are technical difficulties with connecting. Take the mic.
What about there? This is well,
The audio doesn't.
yeah, I would just hold it right here.
Okay.
Hold the mic.
Thank you.
Hold it, please, yeah. Here. Maybe, yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Good evening, everyone. So the Santa Clara County Community Welfare Protection Plan will be developing a project hub site and story map to accompany the planning effort. That will be a medium through which we can share information about the project and that the public can share their thoughts and input into the project. We're developing that project hub site and story map now, but I wanted to show you a similar deliverable developed for another project so that you all can understand what this content will look like. So this hub site on my screen is from the Three Rivers FireSafe Council Community Welfare Protection Plan. And the hub site and story map for Santa Clara County will be a similar format to this. A hub site is basically a project landing page. It's sort of a one-stop shop for all project information. So within the hub site, we have a link to the story map, which I will share shortly. We also have posted a dashboard, which can be linked to all of the project recommendations that are developed as part of this CWPP, and it will provide updates on progress made towards those projects. We can link to community surveying, and we'll also have links to other homeowner resources that could be valuable to this community. That includes things like emergency notifications, information on wildfire mitigation measures for actions around your home, and other resources that might be pertinent to this project. We can also post information on upcoming meeting schedules and announcements. So the hub site will be the place where we'll announce the availability of the draft document for review by the public. And then we have information on contact information for the project team. From the hub site, you can access the story map. A story map is essentially a website that conveys all of the information about the project in a spatial format. So you treat the story map like you would any website. You can scroll up and down, and you can access content through this navigation panel along the top. A story map is designed to be very interactive and has a lot of spatial content, so hence the name story map. It has a lot of map content that you can engage with and to learn more about the project. You can zoom in and out. This layer here is the general location for a particular plan, and they'll be very similar for the Santa Clara plan. We have information on the project. You can put information on current wildfires. So this is a dynamic layer where it will show existing and active fires in the event of their outcome. We have information on project history, information on the National Cohesive Strategy, which is the federal oversight for the plan. Information on the Healthy Forest Restoration Act, and then information on how to navigate, since this might be a new platform that some people have not utilized previously. We also have a page on public involvement. So this is a good place for you to learn what upcoming scheduled events there are, links to other communication tools, so links back to the hub site where we were previously, links to social media that the Fire Safe Council has information available through, and other information through CWPP flyer or community survey. This section is entitled the fire environment. It has a lot of technical information. So this is where we will provide information on the wildland urban interface, zoom into the map. You can click on each of these polygons to learn more information. You can click on photos. You can click on the polygon, and this will link you to more information that will come up in a pop-up section. We also have a section on fire regime. This talks about how each of the different vegetation types would burn within the planning area. We have mapping on vegetation, and learn about different vegetation types. Then we have maps that convey fuel models of how would those different vegetation types on the ground burn. And we have this toggle tool that shows you how vegetation is classified into different fuel models. And you can click on the legend, and it will tell you more information about the fuel models. And then if you want to learn more about the fuel model, you can click here for a description of each fuel model. This section talks about fire history. We have this tool at the bottom. If I click this play button, it will move us from 1910 all the way through to present day, and each of these areas that are populating on the map of previous fires that have occurred within the vicinity of this particular project area. You can click on each of these fires to learn more information about it, the name of the fire was, and the year. And then we also have graphical data here that conveys information about the fire. So if you're interested in how many fires have occurred in July, if this time period, you can click on this button and it will generate those fires on the map. Or fires by cause, how many arson fires have there been in June, in May, in August. It will show on the map those particular data. Then we have background information on the fire season, the challenges, including climate change. We have information on decision support tools that our fire responders utilize. We have models of fire response, information on who the local response resources are, as well as state response and federal response. We have evacuation resources, where you can click for more information. Then we have evacuation route risk analysis that shows within the community which roads are at higher risk for entrapment, evacuation risk, based on features of that road, including things like sinuosity, road surfacing, grade, and width. We also have road entrapment analysis and different zones for evacuation that have been delineated by this particular 14. Then we have our wildland urban interface risk and hazard assessment. Again, you can zoom in and out. The areas in red are obviously high risk, the areas in green are low risk. It's a kind of heat map. You can click on the polygons and then download PDFs that provide more information about how the hazard assessment was completed and the specific findings from that assessment. And then to zoom in, just keep scrolling, and we have a summary of the positive and negative ratings or components that went into that particular rating and recommendations for mitigating that risk. And as we scroll, it zooms us around our project area to look at the various different community polygons. We have a section on values at risk. These are all of those things that are important to the community to be protected. And we use this information as a core team to help us develop recommendations for protection of those various different values at risk. This is a very data-rich layout that's going to take a little bit of time to populate, but we have each of those values broken down into natural, socioeconomic. You see those they're starting to populate now, including things like fire departments, communication towers, hospitals, and cultural value of risk, like historic properties, archaeological resources, cultural landscapes, and other infrastructure that should be protected. Mitigation strategies are what form the real meat of CWPP, and we break those mitigation strategies down into the 3 main components of the National Wildfire Management Strategy. And those components are restoring and maintaining landscape, fire adapted communities, and fire response. So when we talk about resilient landscapes, we're talking about restoring and maintaining those landscapes using methods that cover fuel reduction or vegetation management. So as a core team, we develop recommendations specific to this resilient landscape component. We developed a table that summarizes different treatment options, and this will be part of the CWPP. Within these tables, we have a project description. We identify the priority for that project. We look at the status of the project, the location, and who the land ownership would be. We develop a methodology or approach to implementing that project. We describe by implementing that project what was that to do to mitigate wildfire risk. We have timeline, we have monitoring the maintenance requirements, and then we provide various funding sources. So we have these tables developed for various different projects across the planning area. So for the county, so across the county, we will develop projects that have fuels mitigation with each of these components to it. Here's a map of the various existing and planned treatments that are occurring within this particular project area. We gather all this data from our agency partners and put it onto this map. So it's a place where all of you can see what other actions are occurring within the landscape. We also then identify areas of concern. So we scroll back and forth. This slide here shows risk assessments. This layer here shows various different polygons that have been delineated by our planning team to address some of these higher risk areas. As you can see, these polygons delineate around some of the higher risk areas. We have the section on fire adapted communities. Fire adapted communities focuses on projects related to education and outreach for communities, as well as actions that homeowners can take to address structural ignitability. You all have a lot of resources for education and outreach, particularly within the state and also within the county. Lots of agencies have developed materials that will help inform you all on what you need to do on your property. And we convey that information here through actions for homeowners, click on various different additional content that provide pop-ups. And then this third section is on safe and effective wildfire response. This provides recommendations to help support your fire responders, so the local fire department, the Cal Fire Department, and other resources that provide that emergency management and effective response. So if I were to click here, that takes us to a similar table of recommendations. And then monitoring and evaluation strategies. It's important that this isn't a one-time deal to address mitigation. A lot of projects need to have repeated and frequent maintenance and monitoring. And so we have recommendation tables that identify how frequently these projects should be monitored or revised. And the timeline for updating the CWPP. This plan should be considered a live document. The core team will be reconvening every 6 months, every year to make sure that the project is moving along, that the project is being implemented, that there are not any hurdles that are preventing implementation of projects, and they'll be revisiting and recognizing when they need to update the document. We also have a section on post-fire recovery that provides resources for homeowners and for agencies for returning to your home or to your property after that's been fire. Then we have available other homeowner resources. As I mentioned again, a one-stop shop for resources that are specific to Santa Clara County and to California. When the draft document is available for review, it will be posted here, and you'll be able to click, and it will generate a PDF of the document that you can then download, review, and provide comments on. have this contact us page, you know, who to reach out to for any questions. And we also provide a glossary and references. Thank you for your time. We think this tool is going to really provide a lot of value to this planning method, and we're excited to provide the plan, the hub, and the story map to you in the next month or so. Thank you.
Thank you for your support. I'm sure your arm's a little tired, but thank you very much. Hopefully, for those in the audience over Zoom, you could get a flavor for that. Again, the full story map is available on our website. It's a terrific tool. No tool is a panacea, but the point of the story map is it's a vehicle to continuously engage the public. They can submit requests for projects. We want to make sure that as projects are done, they're added to the map so that you can see what we're doing and what all our agency partners are doing. So as we wind down tonight and before we get to the Q&A portion of the night, again, I just want to take a moment to thank a number of key partners and stakeholders without which we couldn't do our job at the Fire Safe Council, and we certainly couldn't have put together 5 public-facing meetings. So first, I want to thank Supervisor Wasserman and his staff. We had a number of conversations early on, and I want to wish Supervisor Wasserman the best in the next chapter. We've been in touch with Supervisor-elect Arenas, and we hope once she is seated and fully engaged, we'll be able to work collaboratively with her, just as we've had the support of all of the Board of Supervisors throughout the county. So thank you for your support. I want to give a real important thank you to, frankly, my wingman for the last 3 weeks, Chief Ed Ore. Thank you for your mentorship and your support. I want to also thank our partners at Santa Clara County Fire, Assistant Chief Fire Brian Glass, for helping us coordinate all the Zooms and making that go as smoothly as we can. I want to thank Chief Matheson, the lead interface for wildfire engagement for County Fire. He worked quite closely with us and supporting our crews in the field. And again, thank you to Chief Lally as well. Thank you to Dana Reed and our partners at the Planning Department. Daryl, thank you for showing up tonight. I also want to thank the Board of Directors for the Fire Safe Council. It's through their vision and support that we were able to initiate this engagement. And so thank you. And now I want to turn the program over to Amanda. She's got some important communication information about how to get information. And then we're going to open up the Q&A. I know that we did get a number of questions that came in in advance, but we certainly want to start with taking the audience Q&A. So let me turn it over to you, Amanda, for the final wrap up and then engaging the public in answering questions.
Thank you, Seth. So once again, before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and change it to the next slide. Tara, if you can help me out with that as well. As Seth mentioned, we have various areas for you to continue to communicate, ask questions, and give feedback through this process. So this is not your only chance this evening. You'll see a series of QR codes. You can use your phone camera app to access either our website that contains information on the CWPP update process, as well as some other resources. The survey that I mentioned previously, if you're here, we also have paper ones available. Also, as mentioned, you can continue to ask questions. So there's a form available for you to contact us and ask questions, or find frequently asked questions that are already available. And finally, we have a mailing list that's specific to the CWPP update in this project. So that's available. If you're not tech savvy, like I am not tonight, you may also go to our website at scfiresafe.org. And the CWPP information would be under the projects area on our main webpage. There's also a great big logo, CWPP, click that, it'll take you there as well. I did want to make one note. The tutorial that we showed you for the story map is not our Santa Clara County Santa Clara County CWPP story map. That was from Three Rivers Fire Safe Council. However, ours is in development, one specific to our county, your community, our community, should be available in about a month or so. We're not quite sure at this time, but it can be found on County Fire's website and our Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council website as well. With that, as mentioned, we would like to ask folks to come to the podium and ask any questions you have. That way we can utilize the microphone and the video, and folks on Zoom can hear your questions. If you're unable or need us to come to you, then we will make that work out for you as well. So if there's anybody in the room that has a question, I invite you to come up and ask, or comments too. I'll just have you come over here. Do we have this microphone on?
Is this one on?
I use this one. Yeah,
This
that's
one
right.
works?
Yeah, got the Zoom mic.
Well, it looks like you guys are doing a pretty good job here on your plan. Just wondered, at the state level where I'm working, is there going to be livestock grazing incorporated in this program? I know they do livestock grazing in the park there on Mount Hamilton Road, but would the other parks have that to control the fuel loads? I know during the fire, when I was active on the fire, that where the cattle and other animals were, it made a difference. And I wondered if that would be incorporated into your plan here. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'm going to pass the mic over to Chief Ed Ore to answer that.
So, Greg, yes, short answer is yes, there will be some dialogue in the CWPP about ranchers' needs, vulnerabilities, et cetera. The Ag Pass program is going to be addressed in there. CWPPs in general really focus on the WUI area, not so much the working lands, the more remote areas of the county. However, like I said before, because we're doing a countywide and different jurisdictions concurrently, we've been working with the Guadalupe Coyote Resource Conservation District, and they've agreed to take a leadership role in herding the cattlemen and bringing them together as one voice, and probably other agricultural segments of the county as well. And we will continue to foster that.
Yeah, sir. Feel free to come up. Come over. Yeah, if you can come over here. We're in a different location every time, so it comes with its challenges. And if you wouldn't mind stating your name, if you feel comfortable.
So I'm Sean Mulligan from Holiday Lake Estates. We're up by Lake Anderson. We were evacuated in August 2020. And one of the projects that you actually received a grant for is the East Dunn Avenue Escape Routes Project. And there are a couple, Holiday Lake Estates and Jackson Oaks are both about 500 homes and we're FireWise certified. There are a couple communities in between us that are not. They'd like to get FireWise certified because I don't think they really understand the risk. Even though they were evacuated, there's not a lot of awareness up there that this is something that can kill you. Even though we had that evacuation, what they're really worried about is the fast onset wildfire where you don't get, multiple days of, it's the SCU complex fire is coming, it's closer, get ready, one where it starts at 2 o'clock in the morning and you got 3,500 people you need to evacuate. They've said that East Dunn Avenue doesn't have adequate evacuation capacity. And then also it's a single point of failure is that if it goes down, that's why they're doing the evacuation routes to the east. So I'd like a lot more detail on that. And then I'd like to get those two other communities FireWise certified. And then finally, Valley Water has drained Lake Anderson, as you're aware. That definitely increases the risk. The FireWise report for Holiday Lake Estates says that. It just says the effects of the draining of Lake Anderson are expected to be bad. That was back in 2016 2018 when they said that for Holiday Lake Estates. Obviously now the draining of Lake Anderson is now a decade-long project. And we're now living on top of hundreds of acres of combustible vegetation, which really does make the situation worse. So I'd like to see all that stuff get included into the CWPP and maybe some sort of, local fire safe council incorporated for us because our issues are so specific. I guess that's all I'll say for now.
So just a quick comment on your comment, and thank you. It's important. As far as Firewise USA communities goes, I'd like to talk with you and the community more offline about that. And also like to note that it is a great tool, and it's an opportunity to get a dialogue going with communities and create engagement and bridge that, give that opportunity for more education and connecting with your neighbors. So don't think I have any cards with me tonight, but let's connect offline about that. We'll talk more. Thank you so much for your comments. Yeah, absolutely. Here.
So Sean, you would have been evacuated twice, once for the night of July 4th, 2020 for the park fire, and then a month later for the SU Lightning Complex as it continued to burn towards you. Yeah. So we recognize that East Dunn is a vulnerable escape route, and so that's why the Fire Safe Council got a grant to address that. And your suggestion about Anderson Reservoir, that's a very good one. We'll have to talk to Valley Water about any opportunities there are for the vegetative regrowth that occurs within the footprint and any eutrophication of the waterways that might be occurring.
Thanks for those additional comments, Chief Lore. Anybody else tonight in the room? Yeah. Well, okay. Do you want to address us, Seth? Sure. Okay, great. I'll let you come up. So we'll address a couple of questions that came on via Zoom, and then we'll open it back up to the room if there are no further questions after that. Once again, we'd like to invite you to meet with us, have some discussions, get some resources, and yeah, Beth, take it away.
Thank you. One of the questions was, why now? Why didn't you being the Fire Safe Council and the county entities, why didn't you do an update earlier, given all the fire risk? And the short answer is there's no shortage of priorities. Ultimately, we needed the funding to come through. And so it's in part because of two critical factors. One, we have secured the funding, but two, I think as Deputy Director Darrell Ray had mentioned earlier, the county is in the process of the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. And as Darrell had mentioned, right, there are 8 hazards in the county, or 8 hazards in the plan, wildfire among them, and it's obviously one of the most important. All the hazards are important. But the opportunity to update the CWPP in conjunction and concurrently with the county's effort on the safety element and the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan will ensure that we collaborate together. It'll ensure that all the information across all 3 of those projects is integrated and current. And so actually, we think it's going to be more effective because the county is engaged in their effort, combined with what we're going to do on the CWPP, we'll get a lot of collaboration and a lot of synergies. So that's the short answer to why now, why not earlier. Chief Lore, please.
So to add to that, one of the things I didn't mention earlier in the 2022 update, we're going to make the update more of a living live document. So as priority treatment projects get checked off the list as they're done, then we'll continue to add additional projects to the bottom of the list. And if and when the Fire Safe Council gets the county coordinator position, that will be so much easier to do because you'll have somebody to champion those causes and to keep it updated and to keep adding to the list so that it doesn't get out of date.
Thank you for that. A question came in earlier about wildfire smoke. And I think as part of Chief Oray's presentation earlier, you touched on wildfire smoke. And one of the things we all know is fire knows no boundaries. And in fact, over the last couple of years, there has been a lot of research, both here from Stanford, from San Jose State, from Berkeley, and frankly, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, from NCAR. What we now know is that wildfire smoke doesn't have to come from a wildfire in your backyard to affect you. Wildfires in the North Bay, wildfires, in fact, from as far away as Santa Rosa can have significant impact on our local community here. We know that wildfire smoke travels, but one of the most important lessons we've learned is particularly WUI-based wildfires are much different than a wildfire that maybe a lightning strike might cause, deep in a state park or deep in an unpopulated area. Wildfire smoke has additional toxicity challenges as cars burn, as houses burn, as PVC piping burns. We're all breathing in those toxic elements. And we know that wildfire smoke has both immediate impacts. All of the studies show that emergency room admissions are significantly increased at the time of a wildfire. But what we're learning now is that wildfire smoke has long-term impacts, 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. We also know that populations that may be in underserved communities or communities of color, where there may be things like pre-existing or higher rates of asthma or other issues, they suffer dramatically from wildfire smoke and can feel the impact more acutely than other populations. So one of the things that we want to do at the Fire Safety Council as part of our COE development is hopefully look for funding that will allow us to develop education and community outreach initiatives that will be able to educate the population about wildfire smoke. One of the things that was really interesting is Stanford did a survey or did a study probably 4 months ago, and I can make this available to anybody that asks. But frankly, the standard action that most people take of shutting their windows when there's a wildfire, frankly, does very little. Smoke gets into the house if you have your windows closed, and it has significant impacts. And so we want to make wildfire smoke awareness, hopefully engage agencies perhaps like the Bay Area Regional Air Quality Board to see if there's opportunities to bring smoke detection, low-cost smoke detection, in-home smoke detection devices, get those out into the under-resourced areas of the communities. So we recognize that wildfire smoke is a significant issue, and it's an issue that doesn't have to happen in our backyard to have an impact here in Santa Clara County. Please.
Chief Oray kind of touched on it previously. There's also an economic impact. If you not in the WUI, outside of the WUI, if you are a business or you're counting on, the industry of people visiting, that's not going to be, that gets highly shut down during a wildfire event, and often due to smoke. So just wanted to touch on how it impacts that economy area as well.
Thank you. Here's one that came in, and I think it's a really interesting question that I want to open it up. As a Santa Clara County resident, how likely are we to experience a fire like the Tubbs fire that happened in Santa Rosa a couple of years ago? How likely is an event like that, or the Marshall fire that took place in Colorado just about a year ago from this time? How likely is that a similar event of that size and magnitude likely to happen in Santa Clara County? It's a good question. Maybe I can do some tag teaming with a couple of folks, but let me first bring back Chief Ed Oray to help answer that question, and then I've got some comments as well.
Well, it's entirely likely because we have the fuel loading that you see in many parts of the states, very high fuel loading. We have knob cone stands like where the Loma fire was that just completely are dependent on wildfire and a rather high frequency wildfire. regime. And we have the weather events that led to many of the conflagrations that you've seen. When we have those Diablo winds, those offshore winds that are high winds, warm, dry, those are the days that we're most at risk. And it might be one day every 10, 20 years or so, but that might be the day you lose your house or your business or be completely disrupted. So it's hard to remain vigilant when you have that sort of a fire frequency. But in terms of losing homes, the 2020 SU Lightning Complex, there was 398,000 acres. There was 225 homes destroyed, including Greg's. And it wasn't a block by block community that was destroyed. It was homes scattered throughout a very large area. But given the right set of circumstances, primarily of weather, but with the drought conditions we have right now, and maybe some carelessness or something to start the spark, and us not being able to get to it and put it out immediately, those are the dominoes that have to fall. But it could easily happen. We had the 1985 Lexington fire that was pretty significant, and the number of homes that are in that footprint now compared to 85 is way more. So.
Thank you, Chief Warray, for your answer. And I thought it was a good question. You know, the reality is, as Chief Warray mentioned, the drought is certainly taking its toll. Fuel moisture content, the amount of moisture in the vegetation is obviously been declining rather steadily. Also, we all know that even with all the resources that CAL FIRE and County Fire and all the agency has, we can't get to all the overgrowth, all the invasive species. So, you know, there's no single answer. Yes, at the end of the day, is a fire likely to happen of that magnitude? I'm not Nostradamus, but the purpose of the CWPP is to at least try to prepare and put forward an action plan that we can do our part to help mitigate that, and obviously be prepared to put out those efforts should we see such kind of ignition. So very good question. And I thank the person that asked that.
Just really quick, wanted to say how that highlights the importance of creating defensible space and creating fire adapted communities and working with your neighbors and taking advantage of educational resources such as the CWPP, the Fire Safe Council, the story map that we're creating. Seth also mentioned this county coordinator grant that we put in. I don't know if we went into much detail on that, but this is a grant that supports with the Board of Supervisors, word I'm looking for. Anyway, support, we were able to apply for this grant through the California Fire Safe Council, which would name us the county-wide wildfire coordinators. And that would help us work in supporting the community and connecting you with resources and work with our partners and keeping up the CWPP. So all these things in coordination, working on them earlier before there's fires, before there's smoke in the air, is really important. I'm going to open it up again to any questions in the audience here. And if there aren't any more, I don't think there are any more questions through Zoom.
No, I actually have one.
Okay, well,
We have,
all right,
we have
let me,
question that was also asked at a prior meeting, but it's a good question. Yep, thanks. That would always help. I have to always be reminded to make sure I don't forget our folks at Zoom. It's a question that came up at least two of our other meetings too as well. And it's a general question, you know, how are fuel reduction projects funded? And frankly, they're funded in a multitude of ways. I'll bring back Chief Warray to talk a little bit about the CAL FIRE process. But one of the things that we hope to do at the Fire Safe Council is think differently about how we can outreach and engage the public for funding. I think it's safe to say that traditionally, most fuel reduction projects have been grant funded projects coming from the federal government, the Forest Service funding from CAL FIRE funding, and I'll turn that over a little bit more to Chief Ore to speak about. But at the end, we know that grant funding alone simply isn't enough to address the problem that we have. So our goal here at the Fire Safe Council, again, we're a 50c3 nonprofit. We're independent. We're not a county agency, but we know that there are foundations here in Santa Clara County, family foundations. Some of the foundations that have been important partners and contributors to supporting wildfire in the past have been the Packard Foundation, have been the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, and there's a lot of private foundations, family foundations that have an interest in supporting local environmental health issues, supporting local communities. And I think we've got a case to be made that the work that we do and the work that they're interested in doing from their foundations have an intersection that we can share. So we hope to be more creative in how we outreach and look for funding. Of course, right, there's no getting away that we still need the support of the federal and the county agencies, but we also know that we can't lean on them as exclusively as we have in the past. And it really does take thinking creatively. There is a lot of money available, and obviously we need to make a case statement and reach out and tell our story to those audiences that have a desire to engage with us. But Chief Ore, if you want to help just maybe close this out, if there's any information in respect to the various CAL FIRE grants that are out there, we'll allow you to close out the Q&A with that.
Well, CAL FIRE has been in a position to help get out money from the legislature and the governor as part of the California Climate Investments CCI program. That's the cap and trade, or AB 38 program. So there's a lot of money that's been released every year from the legislature. CAL FIRE is just one of 23 agencies that are helping fund. But aside from that, there are multiple agencies in the county, and I can't rattle them all off, but like Mid-Penn, Santa Clara County Parks, Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, many of them are developing specific projects, programs, bringing on special staff to up their game, because they recognize their liability and their situation, that wildfire is going to dramatically impact their purpose, their business. And then homeowners doing their defensible space, and neighborhoods helping each other out. All of that on their own dime is critically important. So funding to the Fire Safe Council is really been worthwhile, because they've got the people, the expertise to lead a lot of this work. But it takes all of us. And by the way, this week we opened up our grant cycle again. So there's another round of wildfire prevention grants currently available.
Yeah, and we're hoping to put in for, well, we are planning to put in for some of those grants to help support some more escape route projects. Well, unless there are any other questions from the audience, all right, I'm going to go ahead and close out this meeting. Oh, okay, we have one. Yes, the gentleman was asking if the presentations will be available on the site. Yes, each full supervisor meeting will be available through each respective supervisor's office. And then we will also host the slide deck and a video on our website, Santa Clara County, or secfiresafe.org. Oh, actually, this slide deck is currently on there.
For those that are physically here tonight, put your name on our sign-in sheet, email address. We can both send you email with the slide deck on our website, as Tara said. Or we can also send you the link to the video.
And if you sign up for the mailing list, the CWPP mailing list specifically, we can add those, and we're planning to send one out next week. So it'll either be next week or a subsequent outreach. Thank you. I just want to thank again the supervisor's office, everybody who helped put these meetings together, the community for supporting and coming both virtually and in person. Cal Fire, County Fire, each one of these movies took a community of wildfire practitioners to put on and support, and the Office of Emergency Management as well. So now I will just stop talking and invite everybody to once again visit the resource table and come and ask any questions you have.
Obviously, hopefully tonight is a start. You mentioned to me as we were chatting,